celebrity chef Paula Deen. It's a catalyst for an honest and difficult conversation. That's all we're trying to do here, is to get people to talk about it, okay? So we're going to have a discussion here without censorship, without code words, without awkwardness. And we've got a group of people to help drive this conversation. Buck Davis is a diversity and inclusion expert. Mark Lamont Hill is a professor at Columbia University. And human behavior expert Wendy Walsh. They've got a lot to say about this particular subject. But first, let's take a look at how we got here. This classic Saturday Night Live sketch ran unbleeped in 1975.
Jungle Bunny, attack the wood. Birdhead, Cracker.
But it probably wouldn't run today. Why? Have we lost our sense of humor?
What was so profound about that sketch wasn't just that they got away with using, let's say, the N-word and a lot of other racial slurs, but what that sketch really demonstrated was that certain slurs there are simply no trump cards for, and the N-word is one of them.
All over words, Paula Deen is losing her TV job and millions in endorsement money.
Inappropriate, hurtful language is totally unacceptable.
And the prosecution in the George Zimmerman murder trial could lose credibility, all because of the words a witness says Martin used to describe the man who shot him.
Creepy ass cracker.
Yes.
So it was racial, but it was Trayvon Martin put race in this.
No.
You don't think that's a racial comment?
No.
You don't think that creepy ass cracker is a racial comment?
No.
Is there really a difference between witness Rachel Gentile and Paula Deen's racism denials?
The difference is a difference of about 47 years. You know, an
Anti-racism activist Tim Wise.
I think to expect a 19-year-old to know the history of a term like cracker, as opposed to a 66-year-old knowing the history of the N-word, is just a ridiculous comparison, obviously.
And did Martin bring race into it by using the term?
The problem with that argument is that, first of all, it's comparing, to be on point with this case, it's like comparing Skittles and a handgun. They simply don't have the same power.
Is he right? We took the words to the people on the street.
They're both derogatory, they're both racist, but it's just not the feeling I get inside from when I hear that word and when I hear the word is just different. It's a psychological thing.
If someone were to call me a honky or a cracker, I don't think it would offend me as much as this word offends other people, and from my experience.
And if you hear other people saying this word or this word as opposed to that word, this still offends you more?
Yes.
Even if it's a black person calling a white person that with those words?
Yes.
Someone saying the N-word
I'm
offends you
being
more?
completely honest, yes.
Honesty just might be the answer, according to Columbia University professor Mark Lamont Hill, who says we shouldn't be censoring this SNL clip.
Spade! Hunky hunky! Nigger! Dead hunky!
I think we hurt ourselves as a community, as a country, as a group of people really trying to improve the racial circumstances in this nation by running from these words, by censoring these words, and by simply throwing people away as soon as they use them.
All right, so let's bring our panel in now. Buck Davis is in Atlanta, Mark Lamont Hill is in New York, and then Wendy Walsh is in Los Angeles. Okay, so you saw me out on the street with the cards, with the words, right? So Wendy, let's talk about this, the most powerful.
Too afraid to even say the words.
Yeah, go ahead. So go ahead. Let's talk about the most powerful one. Okay, why do you think it makes people so uncomfortable?
Well, let's talk in general about what a taboo word is, okay? So it's a word that's been socially prohibited, and it tends to be prohibited both individually and institutionally. It's policed by authorities who literally punish people who use it, like we're seeing with Paula Deen, and maybe even in the courtroom, with the Zimmerman courtroom. So the taboo words are out there, but the thing that helps them retain their power, Don, is their non-usage. So the more they become taboo, the more they keep their power, and we get even more nervous about using them. Of course, now we're seeing a word, specifically the N-word, that is having different contextual uses. Different populations are using it in different ways. It may not have anger. So behavioralists are having, or people who research this, are having a hard time determining harm by the usage, and that's the main thing. Can we determine harm?
So Wendy, listen, I said the word, and you said the N-word. Do you think it's different? Like, do you have trouble saying that as a white woman?
Yeah, and I think you and I had this conversation on the phone last week. Is it because my children are biracial and they're young and they're trying to figure out how to use words, and they have friends of many different ethnicities, of course. My 10-year-old said the other day, well, Mom, if you're not allowed to say the N-word, but Daddy is, what's the rule for me? So what do you tell a multiracial child?
Yeah. Okay, so
and I didn't
Mark,
really have a good, clear answer.
Mark, so do you think we hurt ourselves by not using these words? Because I have to tell you, when I was researching this, you saw the SNL clip, right? And they said, he goes nigger, and then the guy, and he does it. I've watched the Jeffersons, and they would say, you remember back, what was the saying that they used to say? Nigger, please, like. Yeah. They said that on television in the 70s, but we can't say it now.
But black people said it because we moved into this post-racial ideology, this colorblind ideology that says if we don't talk about race, if we don't name race, if we don't speak certain racialized terms, and somehow the world will be racially better, and it's simply not true. I don't have a problem with a sitcom or with you as an esteemed journalist using the N-word in context because it has explanatory value. Do I think that white people should be using it? Absolutely not. Do I think someone with a biracial son should be confused about this? Absolutely not. I always find it remarkable that white people find the N-word usage such a complicated puzzle. It's not that complicated. Just don't use it. You just have to accept. Well, let me finish the thought though. You just have to accept that there are some things in the world, just at least one thing that you can't do that black people can, and that might just be okay.
Wait, I'm not talking about me. Wait. I'm not talking about me in particular. But what about the huge consumers? What about the huge consumers of hip-hop who have been exposed to a new sort of reclaimed usage of the word through music? So when a teenage boy uses it with his teenage friend as a term of endearment, I mean, I'm not fighting to use the word, but he's a consumer of hip-hop.
No, but Mark, I hear white kids say, I have to tell you, I was in Ohio in October, coming up on the election, and I was with a white kid in his late teens, early 20s in college. He was talking to another white friend, and they both were calling each other that term, and I was like, at first he was on the phone with him, and I thought he was talking to his black friend. And then we went and met him, and he was talking to his white friend. So it's not just black people using that word as a term of endearment.
I would be happy if no one used the word as a term of endearment. All I'm saying is that white teenager, that white 20-something should learn that, yes, you can listen to the music, yes, you can hear those words, but it doesn't mean you have to repeat them, because the truth is, they can turn that music down and pull the pants up, and why are white people fighting so fiercely for the right to use the N-word? Just let it go.
I know one white person who's fighting fiercely to have a say in this, and that's Buck Davis. So Buck, go ahead.
I have trouble comparing those words, Don, because you can't compare the stories behind those words. So let's take cracker, for instance. If anybody calls me a cracker, big deal. There's no power associated with it. You call me a honky, there's no privilege, no power associated with it. Now, if generations of my people had been systematically, categorically discriminated against, and some of them lynched while mobs of people screamed, "Kill the honky," "Goodbye, cracker," that would be different for me. The narrative around the N-word carries so much evil attached to it that for many of us in the majority, we have a hard time connecting to the depth of the pain. That word has been used to demoralize, dehumanize, to paralyze, and sometimes kill groups of people. And from what I know from my friends and family who are people of color around the country, when they hear that word, it cuts to the bone.
Buck Davis, Mark Hill, Wendy, stand by. We're going to continue that right after a quick break.
I'm still going to sing in my car to music I pay for.
Right after a quick break, we'll be back and we'll hear Wendy's thoughts.